The glow of the infant monitor was a soft, sickly green that bathed the nursery in artificial twilight. But it wasn't the darkness of the room that caught my eye. It was the way the image began to pulse, a rhythmic expansion and contraction of the video feed that shouldn't have been possible with digital hardware. I sat in the living room at 3 a.m, the silence of the house pressing against my eardrums like deep water, watching the screen where my daughter slept, her breathing steady and rhythmic until the moment the feed glitched and showed not one crib, but 2, side by side in a room that suddenly seemed twice as long as the one I had painted. I told myself it was a software error, a compression artifact caused by the aging Wi-Fi signal, but the second crib wasn't empty. There was a figure sitting in it, a silhouette that matched the proportions of an adult, but possessed limbs that looked like they were made of bent wire and folded paper. I didn't move, my pulse hammering in my throat, as the figure in the monitor slowly turned its head, not toward the crib where my daughter lay, but directly at the camera, its eyes glowing with a dull static hum that I could hear vibrating in the speaker of the receiver. It didn't have a face, just a smooth, pale surface where features should have been. Yet I felt a gaze so heavy and deliberate that I had to look away, my hands shaking as I reached for the volume dial to silence the screeching interference that was now spilling out of the monitor. When I looked back at the screen a moment later, the second crib was gone, but the room had changed. The walls, which I knew were a soft shade of blue, were now covered in hundreds of tiny hand-drawn tally marks, thousands of lines scratching into the plaster in patterns that looked like ancient, forgotten shorthand. I stood up, my legs feeling like lead, and crept toward the stairs, every floorboard feeling like a trap, waiting to be sprung. And as I ascended, I realized the house was no longer silent. There was a whispering coming from the walls, a dry, papery sound, like the turning of pages or the rustling of dead leaves. I reached the nursery door and hesitated, the handle cold enough to burn my palm, and for a second I could see through the gap at the bottom of the door that the light inside wasn't the soft glow of the nightlight, but a harsh, flickering strobe that seemed to be coming from inside the crib itself. I didn't open it. I couldn't, because the handle began to turn from the inside, a slow, agonizing rotation that clicked with the precision of a clockwork mechanism, and I realized then that whatever was in that room was not trying to escape. It was trying to invite me in. I backed away, my eyes locked on the door, and as I retreated, I heard my daughter's voice, clear and perfectly imitated, call out from the darkness of the room, asking for a drink of water. But it wasn't her voice. It was the sound of a recording being played back at the wrong speed, the pitch shifting and distorting until it sounded like something else entirely. I fled to my room and locked the door, spending the rest of the night with the monitor pressed to my ear, listening to the sounds of the house rearranging itself, the walls sliding and shifting with the weight of unseen machinery. And when the sun finally crawled over the horizon, the silence returned, thick and suffocating. I opened the nursery door then, my heart braced for the worst. But the room was perfectly normal. The blue walls undisturbed, my daughter sleeping peacefully, the monitor quiet and dark on the side table. I thought I was safe until I walked back to my own room and saw the digital feed on the monitor was still active, and on the screen, I wasn't in my bedroom. I was standing in the doorway of the nursery, and behind me, in the reflection of the hallway mirror, the figure with the wire limbs was standing in the shadows, its faceless head tilted in a mimicry of my own curiosity, watching the monitor alongside me, waiting for me to realize that I had never been the one in control of the feed. I live in this house now, a hostage to the patterns and the rules, watching the screen to see what the house decides to show me next. And I have learned that if you stare into the static long enough, you start to recognize the faces of the people who were here before, each one of them now just a line on the wall, a mark in a history that is still being written in the dark. And every night, when the monitor glows and the feed begins to loop, I find myself waiting for the moment when the screen will show me someone else standing in my hallway. And I will finally understand why the house never lets anyone leave, only move from one frame to the next, becoming a permanent part of the signal that never stops broadcasting, watching and waiting, always watching,